So character and leadership, it's funny because folks have always said like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a natural born leader." But the reality is that I'm just an extrovert. I'm just like a fire sign extrovert that gets really excited about things and is able to bring people along. And as I said about how lucky I am to have found my purpose, I think character is who you are, is knowing your purpose.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Growth Blueprint. I'm your host, Tabitha May Talib, and with my amazing co-host, Master Christopher Rappold. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing great. How about you, Tabitha?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. We are super excited. We have a legitimate rock star here today. Lena is here chatting with us. Hey, Lena, how are you?
Hi folks, good morning.
I
How's
can
it going?
100% not capture Lena in one paragraph of bio, but I'm going to do my best here to kick us off today. So, Lina Maria Canyon is a dynamic leader and social entrepreneur serving as the Chief Executive Officer of Smarter Good, which is an incredible organization. The global impact services firm that partners with nonprofits, social enterprises, foundations, and funders to scale their mission and strengthen the social sector as a whole. So key right now, especially Smarter Goods. 100 plus professionals provide strategic solutions in fundraising, finance, communications, research, and people management to more than 60 mission driven organizations worldwide. Lena is a passionate advocate for the value created by social impact organizations, and her work has centered on civic engagement, education, and economic mobility. She brings to her role global expertise in finance development, grant making, and program design. She's also the founding partner of Noor Group, a consulting firm that supports a collective of first generation leaders and their social impact endeavors, and co owner of the Dorchester Art Project Cooperative. Born and raised in Bogota, Colombia, Lena is a tireless champion for equity and access across all sectors. She holds an MBA in social impact from Boston University's Questrom School of Business. Her leadership has been recognized by Amplify Latinx, El Mundo Boston's 30 Under 30, and with a prestigious 2024 Jefferson Award for Public Service. So, y'all see what I mean? Superstar, and that's only one paragraph. Welcome, Lena. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Who is she? You reading that bio? I'm like, oh my goodness.
Right? Sometimes I
Thank you
just,
for
you
having
just
me.
need to read your bio in the morning just to be like, oh, yeah, I am super cool. I forgot.
She is me.
Yes.
Well, thank you for
That's
having me.
Lena. That's amazing. Yeah, your bio is just so impressive. I'm sure, it must feel a great sense of internal pride when you hear that and know that that's your life. That's you, and that's pretty incredible.
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes me tired. I look at that,
Yes.
I'm like, wow, that's a lot for, live many lives, but it makes me really proud to know that I am one of the lucky folks that was able to find my like calling very early on and follow it.
Yes.
That's really how all of the fruits of my labor have come out, and I've been able to harvest on that is being rooted in that, in my purpose.
Mm. Oh, that's great. So I get to have the first question with you, my friend. So the question is, you've built your career around strengthening the social sector and champion equity and access. How do you personally define leadership and character? And how do those values show up in your work at Smarter Good and beyond?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that. So character and leadership, it's funny because folks have always said like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a natural born leader." But the reality is that I'm just an extrovert. I'm just like a fire sign extrovert that gets really excited about things and is able to bring people along. And as I said about how lucky I am to have found my purpose, I think character is who you are, is knowing your purpose. I often talk of the ikigai, just like the intersection between like what you love and like your vocation, what you can get paid for. And I think a lot of folks spend their whole lives looking for purpose, looking for why, meaning, reason. I was a first gen immigrant to this country, and so my purpose and my meaning and my reason was determined for me by necessity, and thankfully aligned with also my passion and my goals and what I wanted to contribute to the world. And so I do think character is who you are inherently at the core, is knowing your purpose. And then leadership is how you show up. And so, to that extrovert point, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about leadership and leaders having to be loud and bold and in the front. And folks just got that from me because that's just who I am, the fiery Aries, who's gonna tell you what's happening and how she feels and then propose ways to move forward. But leadership is the how you do that. And how you bring people along and how you share your learnings. I think leadership to me is also just about lightening the burden for other people and supporting their paths to meet their purpose. One of the things that I love doing is like learning from other folks' mistakes. When people uh, often come to me and say like, oh, this tastes is so bad. Try this. I'm like, why would I try that? You just said it tasted nasty. I'm not trying it. And it's like such a simple example of like, I'm learning through you. You and I are sharing knowledge. We are mutually like maneuvering through this world, and leadership means lightening what that path looks like for me from my perspective. And then these show up at both Smarter Good and Beyond. I mean, at Smarter Good, they show up with such transparency because I will say I'm a very transparent leader. I think that is another thing that very early on I was like, I can't help who I am, and this is just who I am. So I'm going to show up as my full self, and it takes a while, especially in this world and in this particular country and industry, right? Like as a woman of color, immigrant, and all of the intersections of identity that you can think of that is not often put as a priority. You don't always want to show up as your full self. You don't always feel like the places that exist are places where you can do that. But I have always been that fiery person that does, and so I do that as Smarter Good as well. And I think that then exudes trust because folks see that you are being your full self, and that makes them want to relationship build, want to also be their full selves, also put people first. I also think the way this shows up at Smarter Good is through collaboration. I think a lot of, and this is where I'm a little radical in the leadership journey, is that I don't believe in top down leadership. I don't believe in hierarchical structures. And so navigating a world where the majority of the industries are that way, and having navigated the nonprofit world or the social impact sector where we actually can't really be operating that way because the burden weighs too heavy on the executive directors. um, that to me has been like, let's collaborate, let's amplify all of our strengths, let's come together in a group. And that also speaks to the cooperative I'm part of, is how do we all bring all of our assets and put them on a flat kind of a structure to be able to execute. And then, of course, having a shared vision. I think that that's the other place where anywhere that I step, I'm like, are we going to the same place? I don't care if you're running and I'm walking and you're biking. My question is, do we see the end goal as the same place? And that alignment, I think, really allows people's characters to show up, but also for leadership to really rise in everyone involved because we know where we're going. Um, so those are a few of the ways, and in particular, Smarter Good, because we deal with, social impact, the social impact sector as a whole. These are showing
Mhm.
up on a regular basis.
Yeah. Wow.
I know that was a lot of wisdom in
There's a
3 minutes.
whole
That
bunch
was
of
like,
things you
where
said
to
there.
even start, Chris? You don't even know what question to
So
ask, do you?
if I may, I'm gonna. There's two specific questions I ask. One, um, I ask this delicately and with all humility because it's not the life that I've led, and I think I'm a person that loves all people, and it's just whether it's naive or whatever, it's just the way that I approach life and people. Do you find, you mentioned in this day and age, and being a woman of color and being an immigrant and all of that, um, uh, do you find that there is a level of proving yourself that is absolutely present there that wouldn't be present if I was embracing your mission, that I would automatically be given the pass just because I'm a white male?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, Chris. Absolutely. And I think in different spaces, I think in the social impact sector, because it's about like care and doing good, immediately that is attributed to like femininity. And so there's a lot of women leaders in the space that are just expected to like do the work and do it well and love doing it, right? And then within the social impact sector, there are some spaces that are highly male dominated. And this was part of my pivot 2 years ago when I started doing finance. So after I got my
Mm,
MBA, first gen lesson for, going through my MBA last semester, last class, I took accounting and I'm like, I think this is where it is. I think the root of everything is financial discussions in the social impact sector. Let me go back and get my CPA. So now I'm in all these classes trying to get my CPA, and it's a very male dominated field. And when you show up in the room, and again, as your full self, right? Like to the point that I made of what does it really mean to show up as my full self is not just visibly that I'm Colombian or sharing my story that I'm an immigrant, but bringing my learned experiences and my personality. I remember the first time I turned a P&L and a balance sheet, and I was like, ugh, I really don't like how like bland this looks coming out of QuickBooks. So I turned it, I colored it. I like made it the numbers and colors and I highlighted, I made it pretty. I made it pretty, which is a very feminine thing to do. And I brought it to this meeting and the treasurer was like, this is the prettiest financial report I've ever seen. And I'm like, yes. And so thankfully in that space I had it and I had their support that they were like not questioning the actual numbers because of the appearance. But that has happened more than once where folks will be looking at a pretty balance sheet and be so
mhm.
distracted by the fact that it's pretty that they start questioning the actual math or the actual,
Sure.
like, are you allowed to do this? I think it also happens when it comes to innovation. And again, in the social sector, we have to stay innovative. And so when a woman is proposing a new idea, often what I experience is, and again, my English is not my first language. So for me, it takes like a whole minute to say what somebody will say very succinctly in one sentence. AI is now helping me with that, but like that is the gist of I process out loud and I think out loud and I'll say ideas or propose things and yeah, like we'll continue talking, and then I'll hear a male counterpart say the exact same thing. And everybody's like, that is an amazing idea. Let's do it. And so there's still a lot of biases around the way that we listen to women, the way that we take women seriously, and the way that we picture and respect women in business. And I think that that is the big part is that even though this is the social sector where we're doing things, it's a business. It's a business. We are running businesses, small businesses that are just tax exempt. That's all it is. And so when it comes to compliance, finance, and all of the policies, there's still a really big gap of women, women accountants, women auditors, women tax preparers, right? Like they're often mostly men, and then
Yes.
women are on the ground doing their direct service. So I do face that all of the time, all the way to today, and continue to face it in the spaces that I navigate. But I'm confident in my skills and I let them show out before anything else. So I think that's how I
Mhm.
navigate it.
Yeah. And in the second question, it was regarding your speed, and you brought it up. You said, I am an extrovert, and I am when your hands started moving and all of that. May I ask, when you're working, because you're going at 90 miles an hour, as being an extrovert, uh, um, how do you navigate working with somebody that's an introvert and it does not have that level of, overt enthusiasm?
Yeah, they are my favorite people to work with. Um,
Good.
Absolutely. I think there is something so beautiful, and I have known this because I grew up with a brother who was the complete opposite of me. And so a lot of the Latino traits go towards the extroverts, and all honestly, our society, like if you speak up, there's all these idioms in English about it, like earlier bird gets the worm, or like there was like one about like the squeakiest wheel
Mhm.
gets the
Get
grease or
people.
something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? Why? Why is it that way? I think for me in particular, a lot of the things that have supported my journey and got me to where I am are also trauma responses, right? Like
Mm.
I wonder if I got to choose and really be in the path of self-actualization in a way that wasn't in survival mode, would I still be as extroverted? Would I be moving 90 miles a minute? Would I choose to do that? But because at 13 years old, when I started working, I had to work, I had to go to school, I had to get A's, I had to, I didn't do any sports, I would go straight to work. I had to provide for my family. We had to then provide for our extended family in Colombia, which is all of these are very, very similar journeys of a first gen immigrant that comes to this country with nothing. And so I think that laid the foundation for the pace of work. And
Mhm.
then also the opening for accepting folks that don't move that way. And has also allowed me to explore my own leadership style of like, well, why do you not move 100 miles a minute? I remember one of my most transformational leaders was Erica Rodriguez. Shout out Erica Rodriguez because she truly helped me find my balance, where she would be like, it's okay. And even in the cadence that she spoke, she'd be like, it's okay. Take your time. I will be here. And I'm like already stressing about being a minute late because I'm taught that if you're late, you're on time, you're late. You have to be 5 minutes. And I adopted her cadence and her vibe so well. And she made it so safe to do that too.
With who?
That helped me find my balance and really appreciate folks who are not like me. And so I often look for teams of folks who don't share all the same traits and personalities. And I don't know, I mean, this is a leadership podcast. I'm sure y'all have done like the ENFJs and all of these like other leadership tests. But I often look for a team that's truly diverse in thinking, in execution, in lived experience, and in shared knowledge so that we can learn from each other as well. Because
Mhm.
often when you're going 90 miles a minute, and this was a hard lesson to learn through COVID in particular, the crash at 90 miles a minute is harder than the crash at 10 miles or 10 miles an hour, right? So that was a hard lesson. And I think that's also helped me slow down a little bit or find my balance of what feels comfortable, but also actionable and sustainable because I'm a baby. I'm trying to live to 100. So I need to make it a long time?
Oh my
I
gosh.
love it. Thank you.
I love that. And I mean, I was in the opportunities I've had to work with Lena, I think you do a really beautiful job of demonstrating what I don't think very many people can, which is like you are a galvanizer. Like you can get people fired up and excited and like that, but you also know how to create space for others. And I think that balance is really beautiful and rare to find in a leader, someone who can do both. I really appreciate that. I also just really want to like elevate. You gave us such good examples of the challenges and opportunities when people bring their whole self to the table, and that the power of finding your path and your purpose when you do that is revolutionary. The people I know that are like extraordinary are the people that leaned hard into that. But I appreciate you naming not only the opportunities, but the challenges for particular groups, especially to really lean hard into that. So I love that you gave us those examples. I want to talk for a minute because I know I work with a lot of nonprofits too. I know they're very different in how they operate. They have some challenges as well as opportunities. And you work with mission driven orgs across the world. So I'm sure you've seen it all. And I'm curious how, in helping them find success, you balance encouragement and challenge, helping them break some paradigms that are maybe not helpful, get out of their comfort zone while still kind of providing that encouragement. How do you do all that with so many diverse
Yeah.
orgs?
Well, it's tough because that's all nonprofit leaders do is navigate a space of discomfort. They either have to be navigating. Most nonprofit leaders are in their position because they feel passionate about something and want to bring about some type of change or solution to that something. And what they end up getting put into is roles where they have to be their finance, their fundraiser, their, extremely low capacity, low resource, but high expectations of delivery and return and impact. And so that's already a really uncomfortable place to be in. That's not most people's comfort zones, and a really hard place to find that balance. I and then on top of that, they're like not for nothing, but it's like the next issue that happens in the world, they're the first ones to have to fix it. So even while they're fixing whatever issue they're working on right now, they're expected to do the next one. COVID was a great example of like everybody becoming a first responder to families during COVID, even though you were like a youth development or career development organization. You were like delivering masks and making sure folks' health was taken care of. And so there is this like really big challenge already in the sector of being really, really in a zone of growth and discomfort. And I've always said that. I've always been big on saying growth and comfort do not coexist. And this was something that I used to say to my young people all the time when I did youth leadership programs to high schoolers, middle schoolers, and college students. It was for them to really understand that growth and comfort not only need to operate in a balance, but are always in tension. Because the moment that you're feeling comfortable, you're like, okay, I'm done with this, but that's where that growth happens. That's where that aha moment happens. That's where you get yourself to a place you didn't think it would happen. But differently, I think the other piece is that differentiating safety from discomfort was also a really big one. Because often in nonprofit, folks are asked to not only stretch beyond their comfort, but they're often put in places where they're stretched beyond their safety. And that's both psychological safety or physical safety. And so when we're talking about I think about myself when I graduated college and went to do AmeriCorps, and immediately the nonprofit saw I spoke Spanish, and they were like, great, you can be the case manager for our Spanish speaking clients. And I'm like, yes, I'm here to save the world. Of course, give me a caseload. And then I have a caseload of like folks that are diagnosed schizophrenic, that have had unhoused situations for over years, that their children need IEPs. I have to drive folks to the methadone clinic. I have to support somebody with cerebral palsy in their doctor's visits, and all of these things, as well intentioned as I was not equipped to do. And so these really stretch me beyond comfort of me just saying like, I can do this. Like, I'm comfortable taking this person, and more of, is this a safe thing for me to be doing? Am I causing more harm? Am I equipped to deliver these services? And I think that that's where the clientele of Smarter Good comes in, of saying like, we are not here to tell you, you are the experts, and we are here. There's this like tagline that the team created recently, which was, focus on your mission and we'll do the rest. And I could not love a tagline more. Now I put it on a t-shirt and wear it every day. Like, that is what we are here to do. We are here to support leaders focus on their mission and grow with their mission in the ways that is a healthy challenge and discomfort. And at the same time, let us take on the burden of the other things that would stretch them beyond their safety. Our belief at Smarter Good is that talent drives impact, and that talent is our biggest priority. And so for them to feel safe to take risks, for them to feel supported during those risks, for them to feel like they have not just an ally, but a thought partner, not just a service provider, but somebody to really join in on ideas and solution making and discussions, is really important for growth. And that's kind of the structure that I operate now, is I support and challenge for leaders and both happening simultaneously. Like, how do we support your execution of this audit while also challenging you to be proactive about X, Y, and Z for next year, right? And even though that might be an uncomfortable conversation, we're giving you both. So it's kind of like handling you with care, but also getting you where you need to go. And it's almost unfair of the social impact leaders, because they do already carry all of these heavy loads. And so we expect to take some of that load off and have them really focus on having a learning curve or a growth curve of themselves that isn't so burdensome.
I love that. And I know so many nonprofits struggle with that. Like they get so distracted by some of these other things that suddenly then they're not living their mission anymore. And then not only are they not having impact, but they're unhappy and they're weighed down. And so I love that idea of you focus on your mission and we'll do the rest. I love that. I'm curious, and this is like, I don't even know if there's an answer to this, but whether you're working with an org or with young people, because I know you're brilliant with young people too, when they hit that moment of risk and discomfort, like, how do we know? Because our body goes into fight, flight, freeze, right? Like, whether
Yes.
it's, like it's just a decision or a phone call or whatever, but like we think we're being chased by a bear, right? Like, we don't know. How do we help people or organizations when they hit that moment of tension to know, is it tension because I'm about to do something big, or is it tension because I'm about to do something dangerous and reckless? Like, how do we help people know?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you know till afterwards. And that is the full reality. I think the way that
That's
we
not helpful,
navigate
Lena. No, just kidding.
but it's real. The way that we navigate it, I would say, is asking the questions, right? Like, does this feel uncomfortable because it's my first time doing this, or does this feel uncomfortable because I've done this many times and it's caused me harm? And so I let me back up a minute and say that I am a sociology undergrad. And so there is a lot of like people science that goes into what I say, but I'm also a trauma informed people first practitioner, right? When I did go into case management, that's really the root of everything that I operate in. So every system, especially in numbers and in accounting, like nobody's thinking about people first or user design and the people science of it all. They're just thinking about numbers being calculated and presented. But I'm thinking about, when somebody looks at this number, how are they going to feel? Are they going to understand this? Are they going to interact with it a different way? And so, really, is about the person. And so, having that clarity of asking yourself, does this feel like, how do I differentiate discomfort from safety? And you know that, like you said, your body knows that. So, is this a first time? And I'm usually, is there a pattern that every time that I do something for the first time, I get a little nervous? Or is this a trigger for me because I have been in this position before and it has caused me harm? I think it also requires people to know what harm looks like. And for most, and this is where it's out of that. I said, you don't know that till after because we don't know what harm looks like until we have experienced the harm. And so there is also a framework of saying, like, I'm going to challenge you, I'm going to push you. When I used to have introverts in the class all the time, folks would think that the challenge was getting an introvert to present in class. Like that is the challenge. And once they overcome that, like that's a that's actually extremely harmful. If this person's already telling you that in front of a room, in front of 20 people is not a safe space, why are you having them do that? They're telling you that it's not their safety zone. And so having that clarity and awareness of what safety and harm means, and then creating spaces that are alternative, because in this extrovert dominated world, introverts are not set up to thrive. And so when I used to teach at Suffolk, for example, instead of having presentations out loud, I would also give folks the option to submit a picture instead of a written reflection, or an audio recording instead of presenting in front of people. And so these like alternative routes that meet people where they're at, that are people first, and that help them determine for themselves, like, and because as a college student, for them it's also like, oh, do I want to be the only one submitting like a picture and feel like left out of my friends, or do I just want to go in front of the class? And it's like, well, you get to determine that. I won't determine it, the grade won't determine it. You determine what feels safe enough for you, and then create those boundaries for yourself in the future so that you can have accommodations that help you thrive. So I would say that's kind of how you check it. I don't have an equation that could tell you this is the perfect way, but the discernment between, for yourself, what is safe versus discomfort, and then post action, what did this cause harm, and if so, what were the things that caused harm, so I can make sure that they don't happen again.
I love that. That was
Mhm.
beautiful. That pre and post reflection and just this awareness that people are, even using the introvert example, for some introverts, pushing yourself to present helps build skills, and for some, it's traumatizing. Just that awareness, I think, is super powerful. I have to say, I love the idea of a trauma informed finance professional. That feels like a
Yeah.
really cool combo.
You
I
should see
feel
the
like,
way my clients look at me when I say this. And one of our clients in Chicago, when I told them this, and they do this on the ground, they're like, "We've never heard an accountant talk about people first. We've never heard an accountant talk about trauma and foreign." And I'm like, "Why not? Why not? That people are the ones driving all of these. So that's what we need." And I strongly believe that. I'm
for sure.
sticking
And
by
for
it.
nonprofits too, that financial piece, there's such a detachment that can be so dangerous. And it's because we feel like it's a whole other thing. So just your language around being people, that feels like a game changer for so many
A
nonprofits. I love
hundred
it.
percent, 100%. And just money in general can be so personal. I think that that's the other, when we talk about people first, it's always like, oh, well, are you going to do a training to meet everyone where they're at? I'm like, I just want to temperature check how people feel when we talk about money. Some folks get really excited and are like, yeah, let's fundraise, gonna be. Other folks are burnt out. They're like, oh, here we go again, talk about money. Other folks get extremely stressed. They're like, we're not used to, in particular. I mean, I come from Latino culture where we don't talk about money. But if we're talking about equity, we need to talk about money, and we need to talk about money transparently. And if you claim to be somebody that's supporting equity for women in this country, you gotta be talking about money consistently. So that's the wave I'm riding, and have been riding for a little bit. So we'll
I
continue
love it.
to.
That's game changing. I love it.
All right. Okay. Next one. And Lena, I'm resisting asking you so many questions just so we make sure we cover. I love the pace. I love it. As someone who's founded and co-led multiple initiatives, including NER Group and the Dorchester Art Project, have you ever encountered resistance or controversy when creating spaces for personal, professional, or community growth? And how did you navigate those moments? So this is, there's always, somebody starts out and they have all of these visions of grandeur of what they're going to do, and somehow at the beginning, you said something, it's like we can only connect the dots looking backwards. You can't connect the dots looking forwards, right? So a lot of times we don't anticipate, the obstacles we're going to hit. So how do you navigate those?
Ooh, I think first I have to segment them, because I think there are internal and external obstacles, and I think some of them are easier to tackle than the others. So, for example, the biggest internal one is priority. Again, in the social impact sector, the priority is the mission, it's the cause, it's the community, it's the folks that we are serving, and that often leads to lack of prioritization of your own mental health, of your own well-being, and so you'll see a lot of resistance coming internally, right? Like from spaces where I'm wanting to create. I remember I was the intermediate at this nonprofit, and when I was there, I got to play around with a lot of things as intermediate, and one of them was the organization culture. And so, in the summers, we started enacting 4-day work weeks. We started enacting, folks were like, oh my gosh, we have meetings all the time. I said, okay, Thursdays is a no meeting day. No one's allowed to have a meeting on their schedule. Um, every team was burnt out at some point in the year. So throughout the calendar year, we said every team has to take a week off. And that's on top of the 2 weeks off that we're getting at the end of the year. And folks were like, like internally, you could see that they were already grappling with the way that we wanted to create space for them, because that's not just a personal, but professional growth. I think that folks, when they think about, well, we're serving the community, they mean like we have to be doing our curriculum in the community, but they don't understand that that also means like taking a breather, reading a book, being in the community, like actually going on being there for fun, not for work. So that internal challenge and pushback, I would say, is the first one. In particular, also when it comes to distributing resources, right? As leaders, as founders, when you mention NER Group or Dorchester Art Project, these are two things that we founded from nothing, right? From an idea. And most folks that are founding something without like additional investor, or like somebody who's just pouring money into your ideas. If anybody has them, send them my way. But if anybody's just out there being like, I'm going to pour money into your idea, like most of us don't have that. Most of us have to like get to the place to even access for the ask. And so the expectation is that the priority isn't us, it's that. And so we're just working to do that without getting paid, without getting nourished, without pouring the resources into ourselves. And the biggest resistance of that too is the misconceptions that would happen. For example, if I created a budget for NER Group the first year that I launched it and had my salary on there, right? Like folks are like, no, what are you delivering? If a nonprofit leader were to put in their salary, their professional development costs, their unfunded costs, like all of folks would be like, no, but where is the line items for the community, without realizing that I actually have to pour into myself first. It's the same with the cooperative. We've been operating for 3 years now, and we get like a very small stipend. But these folks are working, like my peers are working full-time jobs essentially in a space in the arts and creative space, which is also a hard space to navigate when it comes to valuation and allocating resources. And there's always this feeling of like, well, we don't want to look like we're taking all the funds that we're receiving, and it's like, but why not? You're executing all of the work. Why aren't you? So I think, that speaks to the internal piece of that resistance and controversy, because inherently we carry our own biases about how we should be pouring into ourselves or not. The external ones, I think these also just come from the greater nonprofit industrial complex of like, how do I convince a funder that the funding that they're giving me to go to the supplies that I'm giving the children are just as important as like me having parking validation, or me having healthcare, or me having a salary that allows me to live in Boston and not have to live with roommates, right? Like literally the resource allocation externally in the nonprofit sphere is really hard, because you're asking people to value things that you value and need to be poured into for them to put their money into it. And that not always doesn't always align. I think it's part of that cycle of being like overworked, underpaid, bootstrap yourself, get in the fast lane to burn out. But I think it also then leads to desensitizing of the work, right? Like when we're prioritizing everything but our own mental health, we then become desensitized to the things that we are doing. So I've encountered that resistance a lot. I've seen it as controversy a lot, and I do think that shout out the Gen Zers, who are the generation of like self-care, and like me first, are helping us like tip the scales a little bit for us to actually meet that resistance with that another idiom of like you need to put your mask on before you help people, right? So what does my mask need? What do I need to be able to execute fully? And again, having the discernment of knowing what that is and then having the ability to ask for that is two ways that I've supported folks in that resistance.
I wouldn't have, I would never have expected that answer. I really wouldn't. But it makes so much sense. And I could see, uh, I guess it's the stereotype perhaps of what a nonprofit does. And, um, that people would have a natural, whoa, 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 wait a minute. We didn't say we're not talking about your salary here. We're talking about doing good for people. What's this
Exactly.
professional development thing? I yeah, I never would have imagined that that would have been, one of the obstacles. And, perhaps that's, everything again, connect the dots, looking backwards, you pursuing finance and looking at P&Ls and making them colorful. And, it gives you the perspective to create a new voice in
100%.
nonprofits that is probably sorely needed.
100%, 100%. I think the other thing that helped me was getting my MBA because again, everything's about language. And I did a stint in venture capital. So I know a little bit about venture capital. And then I got my MBA around the same time. So I was navigating these two worlds. And then it hit me, it's all the same thing. We're just using different language. And I'm literally paying to get an MBA solely to learn the language to say the exact same thing that I'm saying in nonprofit. In nonprofit, I'm saying, please, please give me your money so I can do good. And the return of it for you is that you can feel good about doing good. And when I went to venture capital, it was essentially the same. The pitch decks were, please, please giving me money so that I can do good and make money. And in return, you can feel good and get money back. And so like the pitches are so different, the language use is so different. Even P&Ls in the nonprofit space are called there's like the balance sheet and the statement of functional expenses, and they're like the same thing but interchangeable. It's the same thing. Why are we not just using one term? Why do we have seven terms? And it's to differentiate, to act like these are divided sectors when in reality we're all looking at the same thing. I also think when I had that aha moment in the business, getting my MBA. I was like, wait, nonprofits are businesses, like using that same language of like longevity. It's really easy to invest in a business when you can see its value add, when you can see the longevity, and when you can see the return that it makes. Those three things aren't always given to nonprofits because of the lack of resources. But if
Yeah.
somebody was doing nonprofit valuation, and if somebody was doing longevity studies for nonprofits work, and if somebody just took care of the impact measurement so that we're all on the same page and not having our impact driven by funders, then the nonprofit sector would be very different. It's already one of the like the amount of money that gets navigated in the nonprofit social sector sphere, and the way that it's looked at differently solely because it's a tax exempt status is incredible. Because when we think about it, schools, hospitals, and especially in Boston as a med ed and tech city, most of nonprofit, we have the largest nonprofits by square footage in the city. And so it is truly from the financial aspect, Chris, to your point, like a really brain bursting kind of exercise to look through when you look at the numbers, but also when you look at the lens of applying the same way that you invest in a business leader and you send them off to a retreat and to some training and then you give them vacation, you need to be giving nonprofit leaders sabbaticals. You need to be investing in their continued education. You need to be feeding them because half of nonprofit leaders can't even afford their rent, let alone a luxury of a vacation. And so that is my spiel, and I will continue to advocate for that because I do think sabbaticals are necessary for people who are on the ground doing the work, and they're very, very rare and very, very rarely funded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. What an eye opener. Thank you.
I appreciate that so much. I mean, just in my experience, I've seen more than one life-changing nonprofit go down because of their relationship with money and finances. Life-changing nonprofits tank because of that relationship or that lack of understanding or support. I've seen countless talented nonprofit professionals leave the sector because they want to raise families and pay bills and that's I find that devastating. So I love that you're naming all of this and really thinking about and smarter goods work I think can really change that. So I appreciate all of that. All right, I'm going to do something like we're running out of time and I have like 8 million more questions I want to ask you. So I'm actually going to piggyback to my last two questions as a
Yeah.
final question because I know you can handle it, Lena. Um, Two light questions, one about vulnerability, one about legacy. So, question number one, the role of vulnerability in your work. You've already touched on, being your true self and bringing that to the table, transparency, innovation, all those things. So, question number one is, what are your thoughts on vulnerability in the spaces that you encounter, and how do you cultivate that? And question number two, you've already done so much in your short tenure as a professional. I can't imagine your answer to this question, but would love to know, like, what do you hope your legacy is with the work
Yeah.
you've done? So vulnerability and legacy.
Very light questions.
Just
Uh,
wrap it up. Nice and easy.
For vulnerability, and in particular of like how I encourage this within my team, I think I learned early on the difference between a team and a working group. And a team is somebody that has trust and shared vision. A working group is somebody who just gets given a task. And I've been on both. I've been on teams and working groups, and I've decided like teams is really where I want to be at. And in order to establish trust, you need that vulnerability. I think a way that I bring that vulnerability is there's like this quote that me and my friends always use since college, which is like always a student, never a master. And it came from like some play we saw, but truly, truly committing yourself to being a lifelong learner and showing up with that humility of what it means to be a learner. And so I'm a lifelong learner in many things. I mean, I'm curious about so many things. And as y'all know, like MBA, CPA, like what is she doing? People are always like, wait, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just learning. I'm just absorbing. I'm a sponge. I can do it. Like, tell me more. Like that is the way that I show up. I also think that, especially in this role, and my friend does it to me often. It's like, you're gonna be the last one that figures out that you're the CEO. And I'm sitting there like, I still don't believe it. I still don't believe it. And so I think that vulnerability of showing up as I am in this role has really helped me build trust with the team. Like my first introduction to them, in like our town hall, I started with telling them my story. And I think often people see these roles that get these titles like the one I have of like ED or CEO or like, like the leader. It almost seems like unattainable. Like they don't seem near tangible. They don't seem relational. And so making yourself human in front of people is really the first thing, right? Like me showing up and being like, I'm just a girl. I'm just the first gen girl out here who still doesn't believe she's the CEO of this company. And here's my journey to get here, and here's why that is. And it allows people to really see you through their different layers, to find shared, experiences and moments where they can relate and feel like they can trust, and then start building relationships from there, have different talking points. So I would say for me, it is easier to do. That is not everybody. And I always say this, when it comes to trust, there's two types of people. There's the people who are just like, I trust everybody. And then they get hurt and they're like, oh, but I'm going to be cautious with that one tomorrow because they hurt me yesterday. And then there's the people that are like, I don't trust at all. And you have to build it with me. And I'm the first. I'm the I trust everybody. Let's do it. Like I assume best intentions. I pour in. I am very loving. And even though that sometimes comes with challenges, that's just who I am and that puts me in a place of extreme vulnerability, which I can handle. And so I think modeling that, being my true self to that has really helped with the team. And then again, reiterating my vision of where this company is going, of what we are here to do. We are here to be the backbone of the social impact sector. We are here to challenge cross sector collaboration. And we are here to truly create sustainability in this sector in a way that hasn't been done before. And having the opportunity to do that globally and intersectionally is huge. And so that's to the vulnerability piece. That's how I do it. That's how I model it. That's how I encourage it. And I think folks really lean into that. Folks really lean into hearing it being said, but then seeing it being modeled, and then having the consistency of it being modeled is another really great thing. And then lastly, my legacy. I think again speaking to my purpose, I am blessed and highly favored. I do not know why, but I am. And I have been blessed and highly favored since birth, and the ability to come to this country, the ability to be the first in my whole family that went to undergrad and then an MBA and then is running a business and then, got like all of these things to me are not just blessings, but they're also responsibilities. And so my purpose from very early on was I am going to create access for people like me because I know what it was like for everybody around me to not have these blessings, to not, and myself to not have experienced them. And now I see how different life is when you do have them, when you can take a break, when you can have more resources than before, when you can support your community. And so my legacy, I hope, continues to be that we carry the things that have been given to us as blessings or whatever we want to call them, and see them as responsibilities for everybody to have equal access to the things that give you those blessings. And for me, is mostly my network. I tell people like I am a product of everybody that's poured into me. And it's extremely unfair that access restriction has folks not even engaging with mentors, with community members that look like them, with leaders that look like them. And so that's my goal. My legacy is to leave a nonprofit sector, a social impact sector that is cross sector, that is sustainable, that is strong, and that continues to spearhead the creation of access for all of the folks who have traditionally been under-resourced.
I mean, that
Wow.
was beautiful. You nailed that double whammy, Lena, not unexpectedly. Yeah. I appreciate so much of that, and I appreciate the work you do. And I think it's clear from your episode here and your resume and all of that, you have lots of skills, but I think the thing that makes you the most amazing leader is just how you show up. Just as your full self, your energy, the way you pour into others, the clarity of your purpose, the openness, I think is your greatest superpower. So
Thank
I know
you.
Chris is going to close us out here, but I just want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Can
Jessica.
I add a level, too, is you're so well educated, you're so well spoken, you go at 90 miles an hour, but you also embrace just a loving like humility through it all, through all of the accomplishment. There's a level of blessing that you approach everything, through your words. And I want to add that on top of all of the things Tabitha said too. And probably six other things, but yeah, just wonderful, Lena. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
Well,
thank you
we're
so
you.
definitely adding always a student and never a master to our bumper sticker list,
much.
right?
That's a bumper sticker.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I appreciate that. Thank y'all so much. I think, one of my, I don't know if y'all have ever read Cloud Atlas or seen the movie, but there's a scene in there where somebody's like so passionate about their passion. I think they were gonna go become an abolitionist, and they're like, I'm gonna do this, and the father of the wife is like, why are you gonna go waste your life doing that when you can just like bear off the winnings of our family? Like we're rich. Like you don't need to work. You don't need to be an activist. Like be here. It's not gonna mean anything. And he's like the reply is something along the lines of he's like, don't you know that everything you do is just a drop in an ocean, like it's meaningless? And the person replies like, what is an ocean if not a multitude of drops? And so to your point, Chris, like I think the humility piece comes from the awareness that even though I'm this like raging fire sign Aries that's going 100 miles a minute and like feels so strongly, I'm just a drop. And so I can be like a really fast moving drop and like go as hard, but I literally am nothing without the collaboration of the other folks around me that actually creates the waves in the ocean. So that's what keeps me humble. And moving and rooted in my mission and my passion. So thank you for that. Thank y'all
Yeah.
so much for having me.
Goosebumps.
It's such a
Goosebumps.
beautiful perspective. So Lena, I want to thank you for sharing your time and your whirlwind depth of experience with us. It's people like you sharing your experience that allows the valuable nature of this work to spread. I know we see the value in bringing this work to light. My hope is that with more conversations like this, people will learn and value the approach, and this topic will be moved from a nice to have, which I definitely think you've done today, to the realization that this is the oxygen of a company. In particular, I think what you did is you highlighted the absolute need it is for a nonprofit to realize its potential. So on behalf of myself, my partner, Tabitha May Talib, thank you for listening. We invite people who have joined in to please subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and please share the Growth Blueprint podcast with others. This will help us continue to attract high-level thinkers like my new friend Lena on the topic of leadership and building culture. I promise you, we will continue to do our best to make sure each and every episode is packed with inspiration, strategies, and actionable steps you can take to improve your container. We look forward to our next conversation.